Time for the hardball strategist. This is going to be a big night for the Republicans. Democrat Steve McMahon's playing defense, I'm afraid to say. Republican Todd Harris on offense. Take it away. Okay, this is batting practice for you. Why, make the case on the easiest night of your life why the president should not get reelected for a second term. Well, Todd Harris.
Very simple. You ask the American people, is the country heading in the right direction? And depending on what poll you look at, your latest poll, it was about 67% saying no. I've seen it as high as 75%.
Yeah, well, make an argument. Let's just cite the polls. What's your case?
Well, four things. Jobs, the economy, spending, debt. Every one of those indicators, people are unhappy with the direction this president is taking the country. If that's what the question of the 2012 cycle is about, Barack Obama's in real tough shape.
What's the biggest issue you got going for you?
The economy, clearly.
No, narrow it down.
Well, jobs specifically, the economy more broadly. You look at economic indicators, economic confidence in Gallup, the latest numbers, the lowest of the Obama presidency. People don't think the economy is heading in the right direction.
Okay, you made your point.
Enough of you.
Steve.
Listen, Todd's absolutely
jobs.
Right. It's jobs, it's the economy. And the question on Election Day is going to be whether people feel like things are getting better or whether people feel like things are staying the same or getting worse. And if they're staying the same or getting worse, he's going to have a very hard day that day. But
I think all elections are about the future. They look at the backstory, that's the best. But the future is the future. You got kids, you got wives, you got children to raise, a lot of people, you got retirement living to get through. You need certain things. Who's your best bet for president? Enlightened self-interest. What's your case? The enlightened self-interest. Why should a person vote for, let's say, Romney? Well, or the other guy, that character from Texas. What's his name? Rick Perry.
Well, elections are about two things. One, it's a referendum on the future, but it's also a referendum on the incumbent.
Talk about the future.
Well, but you don't get to do that.
Why is your guy better than Obama?
When you're running for re-election, it's a referendum on the track record of whoever's running. You don't get to do it.
Pretend I'm asking you the question. Pretend I'm asking you, what does your crowd offer for the future to solve our economic challenges? What does your crowd offer for the future?
Well, look, less government spending, more emphasis on private sector economic growth, more emphasis on job creation through the private sector, not through the government. I sat and listened to you talking about Keynesian economics. The fact is, most people believe that it's the private sector that ought to be creating jobs, not government.
It ain't doing
it. That's what the president believes.
That's a debate we're happy to have.
Todd, that's what the president believes. That's what Democrats believe. That's what most Americans believe, because it's true. But Chris raises a good point, and the question is, what are the Republicans going to offer for the future? And what, for instance, Mitt Romney is going to say about the fact that he made money in business by buying up businesses, shutting them down, firing workers, moving them overseas.
Which is what most businesses do now.
It's what they do, but it's not what people want a president of the United States to do. That's happening anyway, but people don't want to elect a president who's going to accelerate it. Rick Perry, I think it'd be great if the Republicans nominated another governor from Texas, because it would make it easier for the president to do what he needs to do, which is remind people about the last governor from Texas who became president and what he inherited when he got
but they hate each other. That's not fair.
Well, it may not be fair, but politics ain't beanbag.
Texas Governor Rick Perry, speaking of the devil, gave an interview with CBN rather, Christian Broadcast Network, in which he seems to diss Mitt Romney's health care plan. Let's listen to him on the Christian. Boy, that's a home game for him, isn't it? Let's go. Let's listen.
If some state decides to do something like pass a health care plan that, is kind of like this Obama thing, and it's a failure, then we kind of go, oh, we don't want to do that.
What do you think of that performance?
Well, look, Rick Perry is a masterful politician, and I say this as someone who still has the bruises from running a campaign against him. If he gets in, he's going to be formidable, and there's no question. I mean, you don't need to be a political scientist or a pollster to know that Romney's health care plan is going to be a major issue in the party, and it's something that
he's your best bet right now. This ain't going to bomb, isn't he?
Romney? Yeah.
Big Perry.
No, I think Romney's. I think Romney's probably
who's the best bet?
Well, I think Romney matches up best, but I think there's a story about Mitt Romney that's yet to be told that will hurt him badly. I think.
You're going to tell the American people they have no choice; they got to keep Obama. Is that going to be your strategy?
Well,
in other words, trash Mitt Romney. So you're stuck with
about choices.
So your campaign's going to be this is as good as it gets.
Chris, elections are about choices, and the Republicans are going to spend the next month or
has any Democrat or Republican ever gotten elected by saying, "Well, you think I'm bad? Wait till you see what's coming.
Yes, hundreds have.
Do they?
Hundreds, thousands have. Haven't you been watching modern campaigns?
This is as good as it gets as your campaign strategy.
The president is going to say, the president is going to have to remind people of what he inherited. He's going to have to convince people that what he is doing is working, and if he can't, that's going to be a difficult thing for him. And then he's going to have to tell people why he's a better choice for the future.
Okay, the unemployment rate comes out tomorrow morning, right? If it's up around 10, what's that tell you?
Well, it's not a happy day in the White House, but I think even more important than the national unemployment rate, there were 9 states that Barack Obama won in 2008 that George Bush had won in 2004.
Let's take a look at the right. You're right on our turf. Here, President Obama must defend his turf. You made the point. The Electoral College has slightly changed from 2008. Obama has to go back and win over voters in key battleground states he won before. Take a look at the map right here, where you can see that 9 states that Barack Obama won in 2008 that John Kerry lost 4 years earlier. A lot of difficult in other words, not naturally Democrat.
To further that point, unemployment is above 8% in 6 of those 9 states.
Yeah.
So
well, it's above 8% nationally too. So whatever the situation is nationally is going to be mirrored largely in those states. And you're right, it's a different map than it was 4 years ago. And it's going to be a harder campaign, but they know that. They'll have $1 billion to spend, and don't underestimate the importance of that. And they'll use it early to define their likely opponent, and don't underestimate.
Respond to that. That is the Democratic strategy, and I've heard that from both sides. Don't really play defense, play offense. No, Obama knows he's got terrible economics to deal with. He knows he's on tough terrain. It's going to be a game fought in the mud or in the snow. It's not going to be an easy campaign, so he has to knock the other side.
That's exactly right. Put $1 billion behind trashing whoever the Republican is. Basically, your argument becomes.
So what does the voter do when they see that they have a president they don't think is met up to their expectations, and they say they're scared of the other guy? What do? They don't vote?
Vote for the president.
Usually in that case, you're either not going to vote or you're probably going to vote for the devil that you know as opposed to the devil you don't.
So you think Democrats would be smart to run a real red dog campaign?
That's what I'd do.
You guys, you're the problem, you two guys.
Well, I mean, when we get higher,
what you do is you don't. Why don't you go sit down with President Obama right now and really try to think through some novel, imaginative ways to put people back to work, because they don't have the answers right now.
He's got a lot of people over there doing that. What Todd and I do is a little bit different.
I know you guys try to. You might have put the lipstick on the pig, is what you guys do on both sides, or put the target on the other guy.
Steve has a job. I'll always have a job.
Elections
I mean, you guys
are about choices, and you have to define what the choice is.
Okay, you know, I think that's what President Carter tried to do with President Reagan, and people said, you know what, we're going to take a chance with this other guy, because you ain't working.
That sometimes happens.
Anyway, thank you. The American people are an optimistic breed, and they tend to look for the optimistic option, and they're never going to pick the pessimistic one and say this is as good as it gets. Obama's got to have a good year next year. He's going to lose, but I hope the hell he has a good year. Steve McMahon.
Americans still like President Obama. They still like him.
I think they do.
Yeah,
they want him to succeed. He has yet to do it. Look, the unemployment rate is terrible.
It is.
And it's worse than it looks. Yeah. It's up about 16. Anyway, and if you're a minority, it's worse than that. Todd Harris, you had a good night tonight, but it was an easy one. 5-point difficulty.